All right, class. We are beginning, and we're going to be look at the Puritans. Awesome, right? I know. You're all so excited. But I want to discuss the project with you. We'll begin reading Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. Once we finish discussing the next 6 weeks, yes, 6 weeks. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so this week we started looking at the Puritans. Yesterday we kind of looked at what the idea of the Puritans, what they were, their idea of the city upon the hill, and the impact of religion. Today we're going to read and we're going to discuss a sermon that was written in Puritan times written by Jonathan Edwards, and it's titled "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God." Tomorrow you're going to work in groups and you're going to answer some questions about the sermon. Then on Thursday we're going to read a poem about a witch. Yes, a true witch, and it's titled Half Hanged Mary, and that one's written by Margaret Atwood. On Friday, you're going to again answer some questions about the poem. Next week, you're going to complete a one-pager on either Edward's sermon or Atwood's poem, and I'll give more information about that later. Then on Tuesday, you're going to participate in a Socratic seminar about the two works that we read in class. Okay? Next Wednesday, we begin our journey to the Salem witchcraft trials, the main focus. We're going to watch a movie about the trials. Okay, and then Thursday and Friday, we're going to look at the major work of what we're going to be looking at, and it's Arthur Miller's play, The Crucible. During week 3, we'll continue looking. We're going to spend most of the time with Arthur Miller's play, so we're going to be looking at Arthur Miller's play. So during week 3, we'll continue with Miller's play. That's not your bell, that's the other bell. That's the first lunch. And then I'll introduce the project that I keep talking about, okay? But don't worry, I'll explain after I go over the unit what the project is. You want some good news, though? Good news? You get to watch a movie. Yeah, a movie. No, I'm not going to tell you what it is. Okay, then the week after that, which brings us to week 4 of the unit, we're going to finish the play. We'll finish reading and discussing the play, and then you get to just have time to work on the project in class. I promise to give as much time as I can during this unit to give you time to work on it in class. During the 5th and the 6th week, since we're going to finish reading the play during the 4th week, the 5th week is going to be devoted a lot to your actual working on the project in class. I'll give you most of the time to work on your project in the class during the 5th week because the project is due by the end of the 5th week to me by 4 p.m. You're going to email it to me by 4 p.m. And then you'll present your projects to the class at the beginning of the 6th week. Yes, you have to present to the class. Okay, so now let me tell you about this project. Okay, once we're done reading The Crucible, and we haven't even gotten into it, you're going to choose a scene from the play, and you're going to decide on a setting, and then you're going to rewrite the scene based on where you chose the setting. Okay, so for example, you like Star Wars, right? Okay, well, there's a scene in The Crucible where Tituba confesses to witchcraft. Okay, it's an intense scene, but I'm not going to give it away because we're not there yet. So when we're looking at this scene, what happens if you decide to have Tituba be replaced by Yoda? And instead of Salem, it takes place on Dagobah, right? And all of a sudden, instead of Tituba confessing to witchcraft, you have Yoda saying, "A witch I am." Horrible Yoda voice, I know. Okay, so you gotta get the idea. Okay, yes, and you get to make a movie too. Okay, but I'll explain all that more later when we get to week 3 and I'll give you guys the rubric and all that stuff. Okay, now each of you have a copy of your desk of a sermon written by Jonathan Edwards, the sermon that we're looking at today, and it's titled Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. Okay, so let's read, and then we're going to read, and I'll have some discussion questions during the sermon. Okay, so let me get my copy out. All right, so we're looking at, if you look at the text in front of you, the background is Jonathan Edwards delivered his sermon, Sinners in the Angry God, in 1741 into a congregation in Enfield, Connecticut. Edwards read the sermon as he always did in a composed style, with a few gestures or movements. However, the sermon had a dramatic effect on his parishioners, many of whom wept and moaned. Can you believe that? This made people cry and moan like, "Oh!" Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit. I'm going to add some more drama to it. I think if I read a little more composed, you might not get the full effect just because we're different. This is, 200 and something years later? Almost 300 years later? Okay, I didn't major in math for a reason, okay? All right, so we're going to look at Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. And remember what we looked at yesterday from the Puritan era was the fact that they used religion to create fear and incite fear. And you can see how that is here. So just look at the title, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God. What kind of God? Angry God. Good, good. Okay, so let's begin with Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God by Jonathan Edwards. We find it easy to tread on and crush a worm that we see crawling on the earth. So it is easy for us to cut a singe or a slender thread that anything hangs by. Thus easy it is for God when he pleases to cast his enemies down to hell. They are now the objects of that very same anger and wrath of God that is expressed in the torments of hell. And the reason why they do not go down to hell each moment is not because God, in whose power they are, is not then very angry with them, as angry as he is with many miserable creatures, now tormented in hell, who there feel and bear the fierceness of his wrath. Yea, God is a great deal more angry with the great numbers that are now on earth. Yea, doubtless with many that are now in his congregation, who it may be are at ease, than he is with many of those who are now in the flames of hell. So that it is not because God is unmindful of their wickedness and does not resent it, that he does not let loose his hand and cut them off. God is not altogether such an one as themselves, though they may imagine him to be so. The wrath of God burns against them. Their damnation does not slumber. The pit is prepared. The fire is made ready. The furnace is now hot, ready to deceive them. The flames do now rage and glow. The glittering sword is wet and held over them, and the pit hath opened its mouth under them. Unconverted man walk over the pit of hell on a rotten covering, and there are innumerable places in this covering so weak that they will not bear the weight, and these places are not seen. The arrows of death fly unseen at noonday. The sharpest sight cannot discern them. God has so many different unsearchable ways of taking wicked men out of the world and sending them to hell that there is nothing to make it appear that God had need to be at the expense of a miracle or go out of the ordinary course of his providence to destroy any wicked man at any moment. So that, thus, it is that natural men are held in the hand of God over the pit of hell. They have deserved the fiery pit, and they are already sentenced to it, and God is dreadfully provoked. His anger is as great towards them as to those that are actually suffering the executions of the fierceness of his wrath in hell. Then they have not done nothing in the least to appease or abate that anger. Neither is God in the least bound by any promise to hold them up any moment. The devil is waiting for them. Hell is gaping for them. The flames gather and flash about them, and would fain lay hold on them and swallow them up. The fire pent up in their own hearts is struggling to break out, and they have no interest in any mediator. There are no means within reach. There cannot be any security to them. In short, they have no refuge, nothing to take hold of. The bow of God's wrath is bent, and the arrow made ready on the string, and justice bends the arrow at your heart, and strains the bow, and it is nothing but the mere pleasure of God, and that of an angry God, without any promise or obligation at all, that keeps the arrow one moment from being made drunk with your blood. Thus all you get that never passed under a great change of heart, by the mighty power of the Spirit of God, upon your souls, all you that were never born again, and made new creatures, and raised from being dead in sin, to a state of new, and before together unexperienced light and life, are in the hands of an angry God. However, you may have reformed your life in many things, and you may have had religious affections, and you may keep up a form of religion in your families and closets, and in the house of God. It is nothing but his mere pleasure that keeps you from being this moment swallowed up in everlasting destruction. The God that holds you over the pit of hell, much as one holds a spider or some loathsome insect over the fire, abhors you and is dreadfully provoked. His wrath towards you burns like fire. He looks upon you as worthy of nothing else but to be cast into the fire. He is of purer eyes than to bear to have you in his sight. You are 10,000 times more abominable in his eyes than the most hateful venomous serpent is in ours. You have offended him infinitely more than ever a stubborn rebel did his prince, and yet it is nothing but his hand that holds you from falling into that fiery moment every moment. It is to be ascribed to nothing else that you did not go to hell the last night, that he was suffered to awake again in this world after you close your eyes to sleep. And there is no other reason to be given why you have not dropped into hell since you arose in the morning, but that God's hand has held you up. There is no other reason to be given why you have not gone to hell since you have sat here in the house of God, provoking his pure eyes by your sinful, wicked manner of attending his solemn worship. Yeah, there's nothing else than that is to be given as a reason of why you do not this very moment drop into hell. Oh, sinner, consider the fearful danger you're in. It is a great furnace of wrath, a wide and bottomless pit, full of the fire of wrath that you are held over in the hand of God, whose wrath is provoked and incensed as much against you as many of the damned in hell. You hang by a slender thread with the flames of divine wrath flashing about it, and ready every moment to singe it and burn it asunder. You have no interest in any meteor, and nothing to lay hold of as to save yourself, nothing to keep off the flames of wrath, nothing of your own, nothing you have ever done, nothing you can do to induce God to spare you one moment. It is everlasting wrath. It would be dreadful to suffer this fierceness and wrath of Almighty God one moment, but you must suffer it for all eternity. There will be no end to this exquisite, horrible misery. When you look forward, you shall see a long, forever, a boundless duration before you, which will swallow up your thoughts and amaze your soul. You will absolutely despair of ever having any deliverance, any end, any mitigation, any rest at all. You will know certainly that you must wear out long ages, millions of ages, in wrestling and conflicting with his almighty merciless vengeance. And then when you have so done, when so many ages have actually been spent by you in that manner, you will know that all of this is but a point to what remains. So that your punishment will indeed be infinite. Oh, you can express what the state of a soul in such circumstance is. All that we can possibly say about it give but a very feeble, faint representation of it. It is inexpressible, and inconceivable, for who knows the power of God's anger? How dreadful is the state of those that are daily and hourly in the danger of this great wrath and infinite misery. But this is the dismal case of every soul in this congregation that has not been born again, however moral and strict, sober and religious they may otherwise be. And now you have an extraordinary opportunity. A day wherein Christ has thrown the door of mercy wide open and stands in the door calling and crying with a loud voice to poor sinners. A day wherein many are flickering to him and pressing into the kingdom of God. Many are daily coming from the east, west, north, south. Many that were very lately in the same miserable condition that you are in are now in a happy state, with their hearts filled with love to him who has loved them and washed them from their sins in his own blood, and rejoicing in hope of the glory of God. How awful is it to be left behind at such a day, to see so many other feasting while you are pining and perishing, to see so many rejoicing and singing for joy of heart, while you have cause to mourn for sorrow of heart, and howl for vexation of spirit. How can you rest one moment in such a condition? Therefore, let every one that is out of Christ now awake and fly from the wrath to come. Thank you. Okay, so let's look at a couple of things of Edwards' sermon, right? Let's look at a couple of things. Okay, so what kind of techniques did he use right away? Okay, so give me an example. What literary techniques that we've looked at so far did you find in Edwards' sermon? Good. Imagery? Anybody else? Did anybody see any figurative language in there? Okay, good. All right, so I just kind of want to highlight a couple of passages before I know the bell's about to ring a little bit, a couple more minutes, but I just wanted to get this across. So, looking at this, go to page 1, down at the bottom, it's page 126. Okay, good. Let's look at the second paragraph. Okay, so this is a good example of imagery. Unconverted men walk over the pit of hell on a rotten covering, and there are innumerable places in this covering so weak that they will not bear their weight, and these places are not seen. Okay, so what image is he trying to provoke here? Okay, good that they're walking over the pit of hell. But pay attention to what they're walking on. Okay, so what is he trying to say here? Good. That at any moment the ground could fall out from under them, because that's how weak the ground is because of their sin. Good. Okay. I really like the image at the last down at the bottom. The bow. Okay, you see line 40, up 38. The bow of God's wrath is bent, and the arrow made ready on the string. And justice bends the arrow at your heart and strains the bow, and is nothing but the mere pleasure of God, and that of an angry God, without any promise or obligation on that keeps the arrow. Finish the sentence. The arrow one moment from being made drunk with your blood. Now, he gives an image of what? Okay, good. A bow aimed at the heart. Good. Bow aimed at the heart. But what adds emphasis to that scene? Okay, he straightens the bow. Yeah, he does remind him he's an angry God. But look, what is that? What are the arrows about to do? They're gonna pierce the heart and do what with blood? Good, become drunk. Why that image? Why that image? All right, yeah. Okay, so when we think of a drunk person, I think of it's what? It's excessive. It's a lot. Because you've never been drunk. It's a lot. It's excessive. You guys, it's when a person has too much to drink. Or if you hear the term drunk on love, they're just intoxicated with love. That's the image he's giving you with the arrows. That God, you are such bad sinners that he's going to be made drunk with your blood. That's how much blood is going to flow because that's how many sinners there are in the world. Good, good. Okay, I just want to highlight one more scene before the bell's about to ring. Down next page 127 at the bottom. Third line. You are 10,000 times more abominable in his eyes than the most hateful venomous serpent is in ours. Okay, he just said that we're 10 times more abominable, and the definition is right next to us. What does it say? Thoroughly detestable. What does that mean? Good. He just hates us. Okay, that we are 10 times more detestable, ugly, whatever you want to use in his eyes, and whose eyes? God, good, then the most hateful venomous serpent is in ours. Who is he referring to? Who's the venomous serpent? Good, the devil. Why? Well, how many of you guys went to church? Book of Genesis, doesn't matter. Okay, the serpent, how he tempted Eve. The serpent was also the devil. Good. So God hates us 10 times more, 10,000 times more than he hates the devil because we sin. Intense, right? Intense. Yeah, really intense. I know. Well, yeah, I know. I completely agree. Okay, good. All right, guys, the bell's about to ring. If we'll continue discussing the sermon tomorrow. Like I said, I'll also give you guys a chance to answer some questions on it. And then we should be okay. We'll be right on pace and for this unit. So I'm hoping you guys are liking the Puritans so far. They're very different from us, but like I said, but we get to see a different aspect. So tomorrow we'll finish discussing the sermon, and you get to answer some questions. All right, guys, have a good day. Be safe.